but we may have to table that for right now.
Absolutely.
Because we actually have a guest that is joining us for the show today. He is a New Japan Pro wrestler. He is going to be at the upcoming Windy City Riot. Here is the introduction that I wrote out for him. The MMA fighter who became a kayfabe lifer. The recapper who can kneecap you. The first and longest reigning New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Champion in history. The current MLW World Tag Team Champion. And the man who will challenge alongside Fred Rosser for New Japan Strong Tag titles in April's Windy City Riot, Filthy Tom Lawlor. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the esteemed introduction. I could not have done it better myself, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
I watched plenty of the Filthy 4 Daily, so I tried to honor the introduction style that you present on those Mondays on the Wrestling Observer Radio. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. Most importantly, there.
We'll get all those plugs in at the end of the day.
Yeah, it won't affect my bottom line one way or another. But
thank you for joining us. We having you on because you are going to be on the Windy City Riot, and you are going to be in the 4 tag team tornado match for the strong titles against ELP and Hikuleo, who have also been guests on this show, and then went on and won championship gold. So you have a trend ahead of you with that with appearing on the show.
They apparently have quite the shoes to fill in that regard. But yeah, as you mentioned, I haven't said much about it. This will actually be the first time I've said anything about it. But Fred Rosser stepped forward. He accepted the open challenge that was put out by LP and Hikuleo. If I'm not mistaken, I believe TMDK has also thrown their name in the hat.
Right.
So we've got 3 out of 4 ingredients for what I'm sure is going to be a volatile situation in Windy City Riot. We'll see. We'll see who has the guts, who has the balls to step up and be the 4th team.
If only there were a tag team that's associated with you that might be around and interested in something like that in the United States. It'd be interesting, but you never know, right? I mean, anything can happen.
Oh, what's interesting is that, said tag team has had many shots at these very titles. And unfortunately, they have not walked away with them before. So, hey, the fearless leader of Team Filthy is going to do what maybe I should have done a long time ago, and that's lead by example.
Hey.
So, yeah. Now it's interesting. I did see. I was in Las Vegas. I got to see one of those title shots, and of course we're talking about Royce Isaacs, Jarrell Nelson, and West Coast Wrecking Crew. They have not been announced for the match. We don't know who that 4th team is yet, but that would always be an interesting situation.
Well,
but
also, Alex Zane, Lance Archer have made no bones about the fact that they want bigger opportunities out there. So there's always more people waiting in the wings. CMLL might throw some guys in there.
Yeah. It'll definitely be an interesting match. And your team, of course, you have a long history with Fred Rosser. You've battled each other over that NJPW Strong Championship. And I was at the match in Texas and Garland when you wrestled Rosser and ended up shaking his hand afterwards. It was kind of a big moment after all that those bad feelings. After wrestling somebody so many times over a title, intense battles you two had, and they were really terrific matches. Really enjoyed them. It must be very interesting now to team with Rosser and to work with a guy you've had those matches against. You guys kind of know what you do in the ring, and it must be interesting trying to think of some ways to combine some of those moves into double teams and everything else. So what's that been like as you approach a match with Rosser and not against him?
Well, to be fair, I think when you look at Fred Rosser and myself, you're going to be looking at 2 individuals, fighting for one common goal rather than 2 buddies who were hanging out afterwards and slapping hands beforehand. We may slap each other. That's a little bit more likely. But it's odd because, Fred and I, as many differences as we have a lot of similarities as well. Obviously, the battles that we had over Strong, I would say were, some of the best times of my life, some of the best times of my career, for sure. But fighting against him for what seemed like an eternity, I gained a level of respect for the man that I don't think I believed I would have before I knew him, and being able to team with him. I mean, it's an honor for him, I'm sure.
He brought a level of grit, especially when he shaved his head right in front of you, that you're just like, damn, dude, that's intensity that I see what you're explaining there. And that not a lot of people in New Japan have that level of grit and determination at the level of experience he has. And he brought it to you so much that the grudging respect makes just perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and Fred is a guy who, if you look at the earlier years of his career and then what he has, molded into now, they're like two completely opposite, separate wrestlers.
Yes.
And it takes a lot. I mean, it kind of parallels him in a lot of ways, right? Because he was the first openly gay wrestler in the WWE. Kind of broke out of the shell and became himself there. And when you look at his wrestling style, it's kind of what happened as well. He was homogenized in WWE, just a part of the system. And now he was able to break out and show who he truly is, in New Japan. And that's something that it takes guts to do. It takes balls to step outside of your comfort zone and try to go all the way with something like Fred did. And, I mean, I guess how could I not respect it?
Sure.
Well, it's another example of a guy who bet on himself and won, in that instance, because a lot of guys would have quit after that release. We've seen guys just leave.
He lost a lot too, mostly to me.
Well, he did. Yeah, that's fair. But again, as someone else who has bet on himself in the wrestling business and won, you have been through a lot of the independents and things. So before all that, of course, you had a good reputation as being an exciting pro wrestler. But I'm curious, how did your relationship with New Japan begin in the first place? Who approached you? When did that happen? And what were your thoughts? Were you enthusiastic immediately, or were you just thought, oh boy, New Japan, that's kind of a long way off? What was that like?
It's funny that you say that you're talking to a guy who bet on himself and won, because that's not necessarily how I view the way that my career has gone. There's a lot more that I want to accomplish. There's a lot more that I want to do. I wish right now that this office I have with all these figures behind me was 5 times the size, and I had a whole library of Tadao Yasuda and Ogawa figures on the wall behind me. I'm not happy with the way that my wrestling career has gone. I'm not upset, but there's a lot more that I want to do and I want to accomplish. And I'm happy to have done what I've done so far in New Japan. When I look back at anybody who went through Strong or wrestles on these big Strong shows now, they owe me a debt of gratitude, because I was the one, and Fred and other guys, were the ones laying down that foundation. If it wasn't for us, there was not going to be a place during the pandemic for some of these guys to come back over from Japan and wrestle in the US. And we put our all into that. I put everything I had into those years, into those tapings out by the beach in LA with nobody there. And then the years after that. And I'm not happy with the way things have gone since then. I'm not happy with not being at the top of the card on these Strong shows. I'm not happy with not having a full-time job over in Japan if I want it. I'm not happy not being on these Arena Mexico shows. I'm in this to be one of the absolute best wrestlers in the world. And I'm glad to do that under the New Japan banner. That is one of the absolute, throughout history, one of the best promotions. When you look at what that promotion is founded on, the strong style of Antonio Inoki, using real fighting techniques to win contests, I think there's no better place for me to be than at New Japan.
When you went to the G1, I got to tell you, that was like, I was so happy for you personally. And I was just like, this is that next step. And I was baffled that just seemed to be like, yep, that's it. I'm like, no, that can't be it. Like your momentum was going. You had the New Japan Strong on your back as that first title holder for, I think, 11 or 12 matches for over a year. You were holding the entire promotion on the stateside on your back. And I'm not really sure a lot of people gave you enough credit for that. And so you got the G1, and then it just kind of seemed like, okay, we're going to focus on all these other wrestlers from all these other promotions. And it was like, but what about like Lawlor and the West Coast Wrecking Crew and all the guys that you've been promoting all this time? What about them? So I totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and like if we want to talk about the West Coast Wrecking Crew as well, I was disappointed that they weren't in the World Tag League.
So are we. Yeah, we said it on this show. They should be.
Yeah, like I can sense their frustration, both with themselves, with wrestling, with me. I mean, kayfabe or not, we are a group in a lot of ways. And we talk a lot, and these guys put some of their trust into what we were doing in New Japan. And, I don't know that they've gotten the return on that they want. And if I were them, I might be looking for a way out. You know what I mean? I might be looking for, this guy, he's ready to team with Fred. This is our chance to break out on our own. So I can totally see that for themselves as well. And, to be honest, what I want is I want Royce, I want Jarrell, I want them to have the best careers that they can, whether that's with me or not. That I really don't care.
Altruistic, you just want the best for everybody. I remember those commercials.
I mean, they can't beat me, so it really doesn't matter.
Right. I remember those commercials watching on New Japan World all for the last 3 or 4 years of you and Danny Limelight doing that whole like merchandising shirt thing. They played that every time. And it's one of those commercials that sit with me. It's like all those guys, they were the grit. They were the backbone, and they all deserved the opportunity. And there was opportunities to go around, and I just don't get why, they have to step over you potentially to get the opportunity because the company wasn't able to give them opportunity up to this point.
Well, I mean,
I don't think they'll do it, but that's what they're forced to do, and it sucks for everybody.
At the end of the day, I mean, I can put blame on one person if I'm not where I want to be, and that's myself, right? So I've got to make sure that something changes for the better. Sometimes you make a change and it doesn't work out the way you want it to. But it's up to me, to kind of carve my own path. And hey, if it's side by side with a guy that I didn't expect to ever be teaming with, as a former primetime player, I don't know if I have to break that out. We're in the ring together, but
I'm sure he'd enjoy it.
I think a lot of people would enjoy it if you pulled that one.
Yeah, it would pop. It would pop the crowd. There's no doubt about it. People...
Just try not to run accidentally underneath the ring, all right?
Yeah. Titus never lived that one down either, yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Tom, though. I'm curious about this, going back to that G1, though, which is, for New Japan fans, they're real interested. Was that your first trip to Japan as a pro wrestler?
As a pro wrestler, yeah. I had been in Japan prior, visiting military bases with other fighters, doing like seminars, but that was the first time that I had been there as a competitor of any kind. I thought when I was younger, I thought it would be as a fighter for sure.
Sure.
And to be, I mean, I consider myself retired from mixed martial arts, but a lot of times what you see over in the ring and cage in Japan, is pro wrestling. So if there's ever a chance for me to fight in Ryzen or another Japanese promotion, I would jump at that chance.
So when they approached you, but I'm assuming somebody from New Japan approached you about the G1. Did that come as a surprise to you? Were you honored? Were you excited? Was there a little trepidation? Like, what are those emotions when someone from the company comes up and just says, biggest, most grueling tournament in wrestling? What do you say?
To be fair, I'd expected it. I was in the midst of that long run with the Strong title. I figured, what's the point in doing this if they're not going to at least use this in some way, and what ended up happening was that, that Strong title reign was used, I guess, in a couple different ways. Like, one was to get the belt on Fred, and another was, and I don't know that this was the plan. I don't know if I was a fill-in for somebody who got injured. But if you look at the block, or the entire tournament that Okada won, but I was in the monster block.
Yes,
right. So monster after monster, big guy, and then there was me, who, I guess had been on a long run as a champion, so that was my monster credential there. But I guess it was kind of used in that way. So I wasn't surprised to get the call for the G1. Maybe people would be surprised at how little or how much going in and during it and out of it. But it was, if I could encapsulate that like 6 or 7 week time period of my life, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
I'm never going to have an opportunity to ask another person this in my life, I think, but what was it like wrestling Kazuchika Okada?
It's just like any other guy.
Fair enough.
It's odd, but like, people used to, do you remember there was like a TJ Perkins interview where he said he'd never been in the ring and like learned a bunch from somebody?
I do remember this vaguely. Yeah.
People like to like idol worship wrestlers.
Sure.
A lot. But once you're in it,
another day at the office.
Yeah. Right. And my initial thoughts when I locked up with Okada before he got to his real dynamic offense and was able to use the techniques that he's honed over the years to his advantage, we locked up and we're wrestling on the mat, and I'm thinking, this is it? this guy? This is the best guy in the world? Come on, show me something, some Ultimo Dragon shit, something, something from Torimon.
Yeah. No, I understand. I've heard, it's an interesting point. I've heard people say something like this before, where people ask them, well, what was it like? Well, we locked up and I got him in a headlock like every other match I've ever had, and sometimes it can be calming. Sometimes in a big situation too, it's like, oh, I know how to do this. What am I doing?
Yeah.
But yeah. And I had a logistical question for you on this one. And that's just a chance I have to talk to somebody who's done one of those tours like that. How much help does New Japan help a foreign wrestler get around? I mean, do they help you get with the getting food, getting around? Did you have a chance to see other things other than wrestling venues while you were on that tour? I mean, you and Royce were there together, I know.
Yeah, Japan now, and after speaking with some of the people on the some of the gaijin on the roster that have been there for a longer time period, they said after the Olympics a few years ago, everything is, really English friendly. So, for instance, have you been?
I have, yeah. I was there in 2019, best 11 days of my life, basically.
Okay, yeah. So, like, if I wanted to go somewhere, I would just put it on Apple Maps, and it would tell me exactly what train station, platform to go to, what time it was going to be there, how much the fare was. They have really done a great job of making it visitor friendly, as they should. Unfortunately, their economy is not doing too well. But anybody that has like the opportunity to go should go and spend all of their money there while they can, because it's a great place. But New Japan, like there's a bus, obviously, that transports you from show to show. Most of the the baby faces are usually in one hotel. the heel faction is usually not in the same area, so you don't hang out with people who you're actually not teammates with a lot of times. So everybody's experience is a little bit different in that regard. Going over as Team Filthy was a lot of me and Royce hanging out.
Yeah, it really was.
Some of the other guys end up in Chaos or another group, and actually, they hang out with those guys the whole time. TMDK, they hang out with those guys. So it's kind of up to your own little group. Another thing, and I know that fans have probably heard about this, but maybe they don't understand the extent of what it goes on to, but there are sponsors, fans of wrestling who are very, very happy, and they're not doing it. Like, as you mentioned, they have altruistic motives, right? They enjoy wrestling. They think it's cool to buy your merchandise and take you to dinner and to show you stuff. So if you get set up with the right, sponsors who really, these guys end up becoming your friends more than anything. But they are more than happy to show you around. So I was able to see a lot of stuff. I've been to Ribera a few times, of course.
Yes.
Matsunaga's Steakhouse, Tokyo Sky Tree, the Hiroshima Memorial, Nagoya Castle. I got around.
That's great. And that Hiroshima Memorial
New Half Show.
Oh yeah. That some of those memorials and things will just change your life too. Just walking around that stuff, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. But it's such an amazing place, and I'm glad that you did get that chance there. And the other thing I got to ask you. I'm sorry, Jeremy, if you have anything else about this, go right ahead.
I just wanted to know real quick: when you travel, are you a book reader? Are you a streamer of like media, or do you like play video games when you're on the bus and you're going around? What kind of guy are you?
Read or watch. It's either read about wrestling or watch wrestling, essentially.
Did you get to Tudokan then, the big store there? Or?
Oh, of course, yeah. Every time I go. I think the shortest amount of time I've spent there is 2 hours. I've got quite a few figures on that back wall behind me. I have a Muhammad Ali Inoki program from their fight that I bought for it was like $100. I couldn't believe it.
No, I've got that's I'm doing the Weatherman thing. That's Mitsuharu Misawa autograph I bought at Tudokan there. That one. It's it's a place where you can easily get lost and happily so. I figured that I was hoping they would just let me take a sleeping bag and stay overnight, but no.
Yeah.
We only got you for a few more minutes, but I know Steven had a question for you about STARDOM. So I'm gonna give him the reins on that one.
Your match at Historic Crossover, you teamed with Shuri against Zack Sabre Julia, as we call the team there. I just have to, I know you are a fan of that promotion overall, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that as much fun as it looked? Because you look like you were having the time of your life in that match, working with them, selling for them, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that just, that's one of those things you never really think you're going to get a chance to do until all of a sudden it happens, right?
It was I hate to keep using this, but I mean, it was one of the best times, one of the best experiences I've had wrestling for sure. I fell in love with STARDOM watching Shuri, so to be able to team with her, she's also was in the UFC. I mean, to be real, I was a better fighter than she was in the UFC. I mean, I'm just
okay. Goes without saying, but still, hey.
But to be chosen to team with her was amazing in the first place. But they don't speak any English, maybe Julia does now, but trying to team with Shuri, trying to come up with any sort of idea to get us on the same page was like pulling teeth. You know what I mean? That is to put it mildly. So I think any expression of happiness you see on my face during that whole time is probably like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually going properly right now. And we're accomplishing stuff in this match.
Yeah, Zach had it up on you. Zach speaks Japanese, or at least enough to get by. So he had a bit of a one up on there. He could actually talk to Julia. So yeah. All right.
So
Well, cool. What else you have, Jeremy?
You are currently already a world tag team champion in MLW right now with Davey Boy Smith. Are you going to be bringing that title with you to Windy City? And B, with you being in the World Titan Federation, it seems like you've got beef with guys like Satoshi Kojima, who are New Japan familiar. What's going on there?
I mean, I don't know what's going on there. There's some sort of working relationship.
Well, why are you guys? What is the World Titan Federation? You guys have all banded together, and you're trying to take down Kojima.
Well, we actually have possession of the MLW World Title.
Okay, you do have it now. I apologize.
Yeah,
I don't know why running everything over there.
I don't know why Kojima. Oh, we stole it from Kojima. We took it. I mean, 9/10 of the law is on our side. The other 1/10 is right here. Tom Lawlor. So
I gotta that possession is 9/10 of the law. Has anyone ever heard that phrase outside of pro wrestling? I'm just asking. Like Arn Anderson said it in 1986. It's stuck like glue. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's legit, isn't it?
In wrestling, it sure as hell is.
You could use that in as a plaintiff or whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it worked perfectly.
What was the question?
I just wonder if you're bringing the title with you to Windy City.
I don't travel with that sort of stuff. That requires an extra bag.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Everybody
are your sights set on taking the heavyweight title from Kojima someday? Is that where we're going there in MLW? Is you trying to not only be the tag champ, but go after? I mean, a match between Tom Lawlor and Satoshi Kojima would sell some tickets.
Yeah, we squared off, I believe, last in maybe October or November,
right,
of this year. And let me just say, as a 20-year-old watching Japanese wrestling, Kojima, if he wasn't my favorite, he was certainly one of my top 2 favorites. And every time I'm in there with this guy, he hits me, and all I can think is like, really? That's it? This is what I watched for years and years and years. This is what was putting guys down in All Japan. Like, how old was Tenryu that you were able to chop him and beat him up like this? Right? So anytime I get a chance to show that old turd who's boss, I'll take it. One of my favorite guys to wrestle against, because I know that eventually he's just going to break in half. His brittle bones are going to collapse. It might be in the War Chamber tomorrow, but if not, then I'll go find him afterwards, whether it's in MLW, whether it's in New Japan, wherever it is.
I wish those matches were popping up on I know the Kojima matches are, but I know the Riddle has a match with Ryohei Oiwa tomorrow.
Kosei Fujita.
That's right.
That one will probably pop. I think his match that aired against Bad Dude Tito might have been up there as well. So
yeah, that was a great one. That was a fantastic match. Best 5-minute match you'll see anywhere. Tom, why don't you go ahead and get any and all plugs? I know you're wrestling in Washington tomorrow night and then Windy City, but anything else that you got, man, just put it out there.
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Filthy Tom Lawlor. As Jeremy mentioned, tomorrow night I'll be in Tampa for the MLW War Chamber against Satoshi Kojima. On Saturday, I'll be at I believe it's a Royal Quest Casino in Spokane, Washington for Relentless Pro Wrestling. And then the following week, I'll be in attendance watching the STARDOM show next Thursday, and then I will be in action that night for Action Wrestling, coincidentally. And then the following week, Windy City Riot. We'll see who that 4th team steps up to be, but it doesn't really matter because I have faith. For once, I have faith that Fred Rosser and I can coexist and get it done. And then the next night or 2 days later, I'll be at Deadlock Pro in Carolina. So.
just
I
a
look
busy
forward to
time.
Filthy Fred at Windy City Riot.
Filthy Fred.
And
Filthy
you can hear from just the sheer volume of promotions that want to bring Filthy Tom Lawlor in that we're looking at one of the bigger stars in American wrestling, and in that sense is somebody that everybody wants to have on their shows. And we get to have you on our show today. Tom, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it and enjoyed the hell out of it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, and I hope you are able to get after it in 2024, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Well, there you go. Filthy Tom Lawlor. Very, very fun to talk to him. And, you brought up something that I think was so cool, Jeremy. And I know that he's, there's certain kayfabe things that were going on there too, with that, which is always fun. And Tom is great at that. But you talk about that commercial he did with Danny Limelight. But, there was another commercial going on when Tom Lawlor was the champion and all of these things were a part of it. But it had Carl Fredericks, Alex Coughlin, and
Total Time Capsule.
Clark Connors, Ren Narita was part of NJPW Strong back then. Tom Lawlor was a big part of getting those guys ready for what we're seeing now, which is Clark Connors is a tag team champion. Carl Fredericks has moved on to WWE and is in NXT as Eddie Thorpe, doing pretty well. You're seeing certainly Narita is a star back in New Japan. He was part of all that. He's been somebody that's been an important part of those excursions, the development of Young Lions, the establishment of NJPW Strong as a brand. And I totally agree with you. I want him back in Japan more. I want him in more G1s. I want some of those guys back over here more often. And in a time when, the economics are difficult, I think that Tom Lawlor is a guy who you could really bring in and get over. He did well in that G1. I'm completely puzzled as well as to why we haven't seen more.
I look back at this list of matches of people that he beat during his openweight title. He beat Brody King.
Yeah.
In the original.
Yeah.
He beat Dickinson. He beat Carl Fredericks. He beat Hitoshi Kojima, Leo Rush, Ren Narita, Fred Rosser, Taylor Rust, Court Connors, Yuji Nagata. It's like, that was a great murderer's row of talent at the time that, it's like he did beat a very good catalog of wrestlers at the time. So,
and the funny thing is, just talking about the time of year, we've been discussing the New Japan Cup, right? Well, that was the New Japan Cup USA tournament that established that Strong title. He beat Brody King, like you mentioned, in the finals. He beat Hikuleo in the semifinals. He beat Ren Narita in the first round and won a qualifying match over the DKC. DKC's been in Japan a whole bunch of times. Brody King has been over there. He's got other obligations now. Hikuleo, of course, he's about to face again Ren Narita. So yeah, you talk about somebody who's woven within the fabric of New Japan over these past 5 years is Filthy Tom Lawlor. So cool to get to talk to him.
Yeah, my dogs are pretty excited about that one right now, too.
They should be.
I was very happy that he was able to make it. I actually met Filthy one time in the past in person, and we watched one wrestling match together, and we watched Gunther versus Sheamus from Clash at the Castle. And if there's one match to watch together, that's a hell of a match.
Yeah, right up Filthy's alley there, too. And it also makes sense. Like he mentioned, too, Inoki, using martial arts into the style of wrestling. It's a perfect fit for a man who had a strong MMA career as well. And this is the promotion for him right there. So, and Flaming Shark's exactly right. Tom needs to be woven in a little more. Yep. We're on board, man. We want to see more Filthy Tom. We're glad he was able to join us here on Speaking of Strong.
Yeah. Surprise everybody. We pulled that one out.